Come and take a seat while I bring the heat. I'm your host with the most. My name is Dizzy, and I'm definitely going to keep you busy. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is, welcome. I really want to thank you for being here and spending this special time. You know why? Because Sit Down Sundays has not been happening for 2 weeks because I was celebrating my 10-year wedding anniversary with my wife. And then I celebrated some other achievements and I managed to take 2 Sundays off and I feel really bad. So we're doing double bubble. I'm interviewing 2 people today. I'm interviewing 2 people tomorrow. It's going off the chain. So let me break it. If you heard my Facebook Live on about 5 minutes ago, who we've got on the show here today, we're still in the month of parenting from August. So we're talking about homeschooling. Now, for me, when I heard about homeschooling, and most of you are saying, I don't want to stay at home with my kid, and they're going to miss out on their kids socializing and all that. If you've ever thought about that and you have no clue what home parenting is, well, the gentleman I'm going to introduce you to them, his name is Imran. I've met him through Kalpesh and Harinder. He's a very good friend of theirs. He has 2 children, one's 17, one's 13, and they've not been through any government organization of education at all. So, Imran, I'm so excited to have this conversation because it's something I really, 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 really want to know. So I thank you for taking some time out. We've been trying to get together for a couple of weeks, but it is what it is, and we are here now, and we're going to create some possibility, people, right now, of how you can transform your family's life, okay? So be open, be ready, and Imran, welcome to Sit Down Saturdays, because it's Saturday today, even though it's Sit Down Sundays.
Dizzy, thank you so much for having me on. Really, really appreciate it.
So please tell us, I mean, when you first said to me that you've got 2 children and they've not been to school ever, and it's like, it rewires you because you're thinking, what do you mean? How is that possible? So
it's
you want
very,
to start from the beginning.
Yeah, it's very, very possible. And in my opinion, it's very, very desirable and much, much better for the children and the family in all sorts of ways. Now, just a little bit about me. My background is I've done a lot of work in sales. I've done a lot of work in training and development. And I'm also a qualified social worker specializing in child protection social work. So, and I've been doing that for many, many years. I enjoy it. I find it very, very fulfilling. And it was as a child protection social worker that it must have been about 18 years ago, maybe 17 years ago, a colleague just mentioned in passing home education. And I was like, I didn't know anything about this. What's home education? Because I was looking forward to move. We were living in London at the time, looking forward to moving to a part of London where there were good schools and everything, so that our children could go to good schools and get a good education. And then I started looking into home education, and it blew my mind. Absolutely, absolutely blew my mind. And my son is 17, as you said. My daughter's 13. They've never ever been to kindergarten or nursery or primary school or high school or anything like that. And they're doing great. They're doing really, really great. My son's just completed 5 GCSEs. And he's going to college because he wanted to. He only did 5 because 5 was all he needed, and he didn't spend a lot of time doing them. And before he did them privately, and before he did his GCSEs, because he said about a year or so ago, he said he wanted to do his GCSEs to go to college. And I said to him, I said, are you sure? You really, really don't have to. You don't, and I'm serious, you don't have to get any qualifications. You don't have to do the exams. You don't have to do them now. You really, really don't have to. I want you to know you're completely free. You don't have to, you don't have to, you don't have to, you don't have to, you don't have to. And he said, no, I want to. And I said, right, your mum and I are going to pay. You better do them then. and it's entirely intrinsic. He studied. He didn't study a lot of time. He didn't spend a lot of time studying, but because he wanted to, we arranged tuition and stuff online and in person through local home ed groups as well. But because he wanted to, it was entirely intrinsic, entirely self-motivated. There wasn't any sort of struggle or anything. And he got what he needed to get into college. So, and I mean, what's amazing, I'm so envious of his childhood, because his childhood has mostly consisted of, depending upon his age, Lego, Brio train tracks, Minecraft, skateboarding, running his own little businesses as a kid, and computer games. I wish I had, Dizzy, when you and I were kids, I remember, summer holidays were so good. I could just play and play and play and play. That's been my kid's life every single day, not just confined to the holidays.
Okay, so my first question,
you should ask me questions, right?
Okay, so look, my first question to you is, and this is, I'm talking from personal experience.
Dizzy, sorry, before you ask me questions, right? These are the questions that I typically get asked. Is it legal? How do they socialize? What about exams? How will they get a job? Yeah. How do you teach them? Those are the typical ones that I get, right?
Well, my first question is, how did you get your wife to agree to it? Because look, right now, and this is for many couples I know, because I know other couples that have talked about home schooling, and the guy is interested and he's up for it, but the wife is like, listen, you're not doing that. Okay, because so did you have that resistance with your wife, or were you both on the same page?
No, she wasn't up for it. She wasn't up for it at all. So it was, we just kept talking. We just kept talking. And I just kept researching and digging into it. I discovered loads of stuff about school, and I'll ask you a few things about it now, right? And just sharing that information with my wife. And at some point, there was a particular event, which I'll tell you about later on, right? But I learned a lot about school, because I had to look at, well, why do they do what they do in school the way that they do it?
Okay.
How come my cousins in Pakistan started school at 5, and in India and in South Africa? Why did the British export the schooling model to their colonies? Because empire wasn't a philanthropic exercise. The British weren't ruling over India and Australia in order to take care of the local peoples. No, it was to extract wealth from them and exploit them. But why did they bring schools there? I didn't understand. So listen, here's a question for you. Which country, which nation was the first one to mandate compulsory national school education for all kids?
England?
Nope.
India?
Nope. Oh, you won't get it, right? People don't get it. Teachers don't know. I asked teachers. I looked at the curriculum for doing a PGCE, a teaching qualification. It's all about management and how to deliver the curriculum. It's not about how children learn. It's not about the history of schooling. So the first schools were in Prussia.
In where?
In Prussia, which is now part of northern Germany. It's a resource-free, they don't have any resources. They got no way of acquiring wealth other through imperial conquest. And in 1806, Napoleon's army defeated the Prussians. Napoleon's ragtag army defeated the Prussians. A philosopher, Johann Fichte, lobbied the Prussian family and said, look, we need to set up a system where we remove children from their parents at a young enough age, have them engage in meaningless activities, and learn to respond to the commands and instructions of state officials, so they learn obedience. That was the school system. They set it up in Prussia. Those children, they became the obedient, disciplined foot soldiers of the Prussian army that later on routed Napoleon's troops.
Wow.
Industrialists in the US, France, and Britain saw the Prussian model, the Skole model, Skole, saw what it was doing, thought, okay, we will import this into our countries. And it was sponsored by large industrialists, people like Henry T. Ford and stuff, and Carnegie, that we will import this model. So we will train children to become adults who don't have independent livelihoods, who will work in our factories, making widgets 6 days a week, 12 hours a day without complaint. Plus, it also means that there's no competition for our goods. Nobody comes up with an alternative to what we're offering. So it's in order to promote the whole factory model of production that it got imported to those countries to support industrialization. So you got factory schooling to support factory production of industrialization. And that system is what we inherited. And the British exported it to the colonies in order to teach the natives, don't listen to your gods, don't listen to your parents, listen to us. We are your lords and masters. Follow our gods and do as we're told. So it's all designed to break the link between parents, tradition, culture, religion, and create a new link, a fostered link between the child and the state. School is designed to train people in conformity, obedience, and compliance. Do as you're told, when you're told to do it, be like everybody else, and don't complain. That's the design of school. And I defy anyone. I'll go toe to toe with anyone about this. And I've spoken to teachers and got them, some of them have started home educating out of conversations with me, but teachers don't know this stuff. It's all hidden from their view. People don't know this stuff. I didn't know this stuff as a social worker. So the choice, like, here's this system that's designed for that. Well, what else is available? What else is possible? So I'm learning all this stuff. Plus also as a social worker, I know about psychology. I know about attachment. We should talk a bit about attachment because that's really important. Child development. I see parenting at the really, really rotten end and what it does to children and families, and it's inherited, multi-generational problems. And then I look at, well, what's possible out of home education, which is the very antithesis of that. So then, I kept sharing. And school's designed to crush your spirit. Completely designed to crush children's spirit. Be like everybody else. Sit down, behave. And one day, I think my son was 4. My daughter must have been in cradles, right? And we were in a local library, and the 4 of us. And this school next door, these kids, 6-year-old kids, came in, single file, in uniform, with a couple of teachers. And the teacher said to the children, okay, go and choose a book. And they all went around talking, choosing books and stuff. And then at some point, the teacher said, okay, don't do that. Put away those books. And go and choose another book that you're going to take out. Okay, so they put away those books and they got another book that they're going to take out. Now line up to take them out. And then there was a 6-year-old boy who was doing what 6-year-old boys do. They fidget and they talk. So he said something to one of the other kids, and the teachers turned around and said to him, right, when you go back to class, you're going to sit on the yellow step or whatever it was, something like that, right? And then I'm thinking, what kind of impact is that having on the child? And how is that fostering a love of reading for children? How does it do that? And then my wife was witness to this, and she thought, oh my God, that could be our son when he's 6 years old. And then she turned around and said to me, they're not going to school.
Wow.
And then it was like, okay, well, now how do we do this? So that's the answer to your question.
Wow.
And so much more, right? So much more I can say about
I can't wait for my wife to watch this.
You should dig.
Wow. So then you must have got a lot of resistance. I mean, we're talking 17 years ago. This was, I mean, it's a provoking conversation now. Yeah. I can't imagine how provoking it would have been 17 years ago. So I mean, what resistance did you have? You must have got.
I didn't, or if I did, I'm blessed with sufficient arrogance that I wasn't bothered by it. Plus also I'd done so much research. There was nothing, I knew stuff that people didn't know. There was nothing that anybody could say to me. Because I'd say to them, well, okay, well, why does school do this? Why do they do things this way? Take the issue of exams, Dizzy. What's the most critical, important test that any adult in the UK, or really any adult all over the world, is ever going to take, or any human being is ever going to take?
The driving test.
That's right. And what's the deal with the driving test? It's pass or fail.
Yeah.
And what we're learning in the driving test is we're being tested on our machine, on our ability to use a machine that kills thousands of people every single day, and that maims and injures hundreds of thousands. And it's just pass or fail. I don't know if I got an A grade or you got a B grade or a C grade or an E grade, and you had to do it again and again. Nobody cares. Because it serves the needs of capital and business and society. Pass or fail is enough. So then why, for exams, do we have all these different grades? Why not just pass or fail? That's not important. Then why on earth do you and I have to learn 1066 or the kings and queens of Britain? I was schooled in the UK. I did very well in school, by the way. I really enjoyed school. I really, really enjoyed school. So it wasn't a reaction to, oh my God, I had such a terrible time. I don't want my children doing that. No, I really, really enjoyed school. I'm interested in what's in optimal performance for my children. So that was why, that was my, one of my motivating factors. But the whole thing about exams is to, school's designed to kill creativity. And it's designed to train you in obedience. Now, supposing, Dizzy, are you religious? Do you practice? Do you have any?
I'm more spiritual than religious.
More spiritual, right? Well, let's just say, for the sake of this, when I'm at this point, you're religious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I say to you, and you're actively religious. You're you pray and you go to temple or church or mosque or synagogue, whatever, right? You're actively engaged in it. I say to you, Dizzy, I'd like you to take some time out now. I'd like you to go and say a prayer. Well, you're actively religious. You might go and do that. How do I know you're doing it because you want to or because you're being obedient?
You don't.
I can't tell. But there is a way I can tell. I can test you and train you in obedience. Do you know what that is?
Go on.
Have you engaged in activities that have no meaning, significance, or relevance for your life?
Yes.
That's what school does. That's
you in activity that's got no relevance.
No relevance to our lived experience. We're not taught how to manage finances. We're not taught real cooking. We're not taught how to run a household. We're not taught how to fix a tire on a car or a bicycle. We're not taught about different forms of exercise or different forms of diet, really, or to explore all those issues. We're not taught to or encouraged to pursue our passions. No, we're taught 1066, learning things by rote, engaging in all sorts of mathematical formula. And the maths is useful, but the amount of maths that we did, the amount of reading that we did, we're not encouraged to read what we love, what sets our heart on fire. No, we have to read these texts, whether we like it or not. We're not. So you've got to learn this stuff. You've got to learn the kings and queens of England. It's got no bearing on life right now.
No.
But then I know you're obedient. Provocative, huh?
Very provocative.
Yeah. There's the obedience, right? There's the obedience. That's why obedience. Then the other thing is conformity. Be like everybody else. Don't be different. And because people that are different are difficult to manage.
That's me.
Yeah, it's difficult. They're difficult for the state to manage, for any organization to manage. Why do we have classes organized by age? You know, all the 7-year-olds in one class, 8-year-olds in one class, 9-year-olds in one class. That's not like real life. Real life. I don't know how old you are, whether you're younger and older than me. When I go to work and I meet with my other colleagues, some of them are older, some of them are younger. My manager's young, my deputy manager's younger than me. Who cares?
No one really cares.
The only time when there's that sort of segregation in the army, in prison, and at school, when people are organized that way. Now, in prison, the army may not necessarily by age, but they're regimented and controlled and corralled. So why for 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds, why are they grouped together by age? Any idea?
No. They're going to go through similar experiences, or they're at the similar stages.
Who knows? People are so different. Easy to manage.
Right.
They're just easy to manage and grade and scale and measure in terms of whatever KPIs the school's using or the teachers are using or anything like that, right? That's all it is. It's got nothing to do with how children learn. It's got nothing to do with our natural inheritance or real social life. I mean, when you go out and about and meet up with friends, you check how old they are before you decide to hang out with them or not.
No.
No, you just meet with people, right? Real life is multi-generational.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that people talk about at schools and stuff as an issue for schools that I have never had to deal with my children is bullying. Schools can never, ever, 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 I assert, disappear bullying because it's an outcome of the way that it's structured.
Okay.
So we are the most pro-social of all the mammals, right? We are more social than chimpanzees or bonobos, which are our closest relatives, or gorillas. You know, primates, apart from orangutans, are social. All the primates are. We're the most social. Our brain is a social organ. And for most of evolutionary history, we've lived in large family band communities, multi-generational.
Yeah.
As social animals, as social mammals, there's always a struggle for status. You know, who's going to be the silverback gorilla that's going to rule over the harem, right? Who's going to be the alpha chimpanzee who's going to rule over everyone, right? And who's going to be that alpha male's mates?
Yeah.
There's always a struggle for status. And you can see it in society right now, you know, we do it through elections or war or something like that, right? Or the different competitions we have. There's always a struggle for status because we recognize status. We value status because it's essential to how we grow and develop as a social, pro-social mammal. So in a classroom of 11-year-olds, there's going to be a struggle for status. There's always going to be a struggle for status. And in that sort of environment, well, it's the strongest wins, not necessarily the smartest or the most charming. I mean, they got their advantages, right? But you're going to have bullying. Now, here's where you don't have bullying. There are certain types of schools which don't have age segregation. There's no bullying. There's just no bullying. What happens is you have a 4-year-old with a 6-year-old, with an 8-year-old, with a 9-year-old, with a 13-year-old, with a 17-year-old, all of them grouped together playing. And I've seen this in various home ed groups because there's no age segregation. Now, the 17-year-old or the 15-year-old doesn't need to prove anything to those that are younger. They've already got status by virtue of age and size and maturity. So the 17-year-old passes the message down. Doesn't need to compete with the 15-year-old or the 13-year-old or the 12-year-old or so on, right? No struggle for status. And the younger ones, they all want to be like the older ones. The 4-year-old wants to be like the 8-year-old, wants to be like the 12-year-old, wants to be like the 16-year-old. So they're learning from each other about how to take care of each other.
Which is organic.
which is organic, which is how we're evolved, which is what you have in a multi-generational community, in a multi-generational household where you might have a grandparent looking out for everyone underneath them, providing their wisdom and their oversight, and the parents doing stuff actively, and you got the aunts and the uncles and different cousins and everything, and friends taking care of the younger ones. That's how we're evolved. And so the absolute antithesis of that.
Yeah.
So
When you break it down like that, you can see such a difference already. As in, you can see the polarities there.
People don't question, I think. I may not question enough. Perhaps there's always more room for me to question than I'm already doing, right? But people don't question, okay, this is how it is. Here's school, just take it. Fine, I'll accept it without question, which is also a function of schooling. Because I said to you, school is designed to kill creativity. And it does that very, very well.
Yeah.
And it can be neurologically tested for. And again, teachers don't know about this and parents don't know about this. And if anybody's watching this, okay, I defy you to challenge this and say it isn't so. So I'm Henry T. Ford, for example, or I'm Carnegie, and I've got these. I'm this factory owner, this industrialist, and I've invented this device. I don't want anyone to come up with an alternative. I don't want any competition for my product. So I have to make sure that any competition is crushed at the earliest opportunity, and that competition, I got to capture any possible competition. So you, Dizzy, are not going to come up with something that's going to be better than what I've got because I want to make the money from selling it. What you're going to do instead, you're actually going to become a worker in my factory making that product. So I got to kill your creativity. One of the ways we kill school kills creativity is through lack of opportunities to explore and engage in what you're passionate about, lack of physical movement. And I'll come to that in a second. You know Patrick Moore, the astronomer, right? Died a few years ago. By the time he died, he'd published 100 books. He was an expert on the stars and the solar system, and he was a TV presenter and a journalist. And he was an accomplished xylophone player. So accomplished musician, accomplished writer, and an expert on astronomy as an adult, right? Celebrated and renowned, passionate. You know, he never went to school. He was home educated. And do you know what he did as a kid? He did 3 things. He played music, he wrote, and he learned about the stars. That was all he did. That's all he did as a child and as an adult. That's all he did. He pursued his passions, what he was passionate about, and he had the space to allow him to do that. There was nobody saying to him, no, you can't be doing that. You can't be doing that. You got to do this because that's on the curriculum. You can't pursue what's most important to you and what sets your heart on fire. You've got to learn 1066. And then if you don't, you'll be punished and ridiculed and ashamed, right? Actually, just brings me on to a point, right? So imagine this. You're a teacher now, Dizzy, right? All of a sudden you're a teacher and you've got, first day of term, you've got 30 11-year-olds in front of you. You've never met them before. They've never met you before. It's Monday morning.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you got to do?
I'm going to say hello to them all.
And then?
Control them.
Yeah, you got to control them. And they're a motley crew. They're a mixed bunch. They are a mixed bunch. Some of them come from nice homes and they're compliant and they want to learn and they enjoy school. And some of them come from distressed, damaged families and stuff. And some of them are bored out of their brains already because school is really boring. So how are you going to control them?
You have to engage them somehow. You got to find a way of controlling them.
You're not going to be able to, you're not going to be engaged all of them. It takes real skill to do that with 30 kids. They're all at different levels of development, different interests. But you got it. You got to control them. So how are you going to control them? Control is different from engaging. I'm not controlling you in this conversation, by the way. You're not controlling me, but we're engaged.
Yeah.
Right. So they're distinct.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
How are you going to control them?
Just tell them what to do.
Yeah, they're not going to listen. So there's a guy, I'm going to answer this, right? There was a guy, John Taylor Gatto, Gatto. He won New York City Teacher of the Year 3 times in a row. He won New York State Teacher of the Year at least once, possibly twice, possibly 3 times. He taught for 30 years in Manhattan's best schools and the worst schools. And I read a lot of his stuff, and I listened to his lot of radio interviews he'd done. And he resigned as a teacher after about 28, 30 years in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. And he said, I'm tired of hurting children. And he was a passionate advocate for alternative forms of education. And I learned a lot from what he had to say about schools. See, schools don't teach. He said, I'm a teacher. I teach school. I don't educate. Right? There's a difference. But I listened to an interview he did with this teacher, and the teacher said, look, I'm starting off as a teacher. What do you think is the most important skill for me to learn? And Gatto replied without batting an eyelid, the art of humiliation. And I was like, oh my God, that's right. You've got to learn to humiliate the children, because then you'll have them in line. And it used to be you could humiliate them through physical corporal punishment.
Of course, yeah, wearing the dunce hat.
Yeah, now you do it by shaming, through stars, through rewarding, through social shaming, through the giving of stars and grades to those that are good, and those that are bad, you embarrass, you grade them so they know their place, and you can shout at them. And a friend of mine who's a teacher, he told me a skill, because I had this conversation with him. He told me something that a more experienced teacher told him about how he gets control of the class in the first class of the year. He says, I find the quietest, most well-behaved girl in my class, and the tiniest transgression, I go down heavy on her like a ton of bricks. Like if she drops a pencil, that's it. I am furious about that. I am brutal. And all the other kids are terrified. And that's it. Job done for the whole year.
Wow. The fear is there then.
The fear is there. The fear is there. Or we could talk about the fear, right? When we come to attachment. So creativity. Schools designed to kill creativity. So it kills creativity because you're not able to pursue your passions. Why on earth should you do any kind of thinking about something that you're not passionate about? And if you're not able to pursue what you're passionate about, what are you left with?
Emptiness.
Boredom.
Yeah.
Boredom. And what happens to your brain when it's bored?
Just goes numb.
Nothing happens. There's no stimulation. There's no adrenaline. There's no dopamine. There's nothing going on. There's no neurons firing. I mean, to a certain level they are, because you're still alive, right? But there's no stimulation by what excites a child. And then there's the movement. So if I do this, if I just do this, do no other action like this or this or this with my arm, eventually all I do is this, all I do is this. All the neurons for these sorts of movements, all the connections, they will fall into disrepair. And the neural connection for this one will become stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So the complexity, the diversity of neural connections diminishes. Now that's a process known as neural divergence.
Okay.
Every neuron can connect with 10,000 others. And each of those 10,000 others can connect with another 10,000. There's an infinite number of connections.
Yeah.
But by being engaged, by being physically restrained, by being engaged in stuff that's really, really boring, you all those other connections, those other pathways, they diminish, and neural divergence diminishes, and you can test for it. There was a study in the UK with about 100,000 children, and they tracked neural divergence through the ages. By the time children are 18, 1% of them display neural divergence, which means that 99% of them don't. And they're just thinking like this, thinking like this, thinking like this, on a track, on a track, on a track. 100% of preschool children display neural divergence. And this study found that it diminished through the years. It diminishes as the children go through the years. Wow. They don't tell you that about school, do they?
No.
Oh, no. So it kills creativity. But killing creativity is really, really good, because what it creates are passive consumers.
People who don't question it, they just buy it.
But don't come up with ideas to make your own widgets, Dizzy. Just work in my factory, don't have an independent livelihood, growing your own food, looking after your own, inventing your own things, selling them, having your own business. No, work in my factory, making my widgets. I'll give you a little bit of money, and then you can buy more of my widgets. And don't complain. Want to send your kids to school now?
Listen, I didn't want to send my kid to school in the first place.
Yes.
But I didn't have the information to back it up.
Yes.
And you know what? I want to acknowledge my wife whilst we're on here, because one of the things that she's done since he's been a child is she's let him do whatever he wants. Yeah. And it's almost been like baby-led parenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can see the distinction in me now, because I'm doing the system that I want to do what wasn't done for me, because I was a wrong one at school. I broke all the rules. I got kicked out. I didn't follow the system, and I actually got kicked out of my house when I was 17. Because I wasn't following the rules of the law. And then once I got to London and I was 17, I wasn't the president's son. So I thought, now I can do absolutely anything I want. So I'm this person. I don't listen to nobody, ever. And I've done everything I wanted to do in life. I've done it. I've achieved every dream. And there's me wanting my son to not do what I did, right? So my wife's allowing him to be like me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to stop him I'm trying to employ discipline, all the things that the factory workers are doing. I'm seeing that right now. You've got that distinction for me.
Let me say something that it's a little bit, I suppose, off field. What saved you is that you broke the rules at school. Because you preserved your spirit. Good for you, mate.
Yeah.
You get crushed right by that system. And then when you left school, you educated yourself. You discovered yourself.
100%. 17, when I got to London, I discovered who I was, because I was allowed to be anybody.
Yeah. Now, here's something about home education and about my children, and also about the home educated adults that I've met, because they've blown me away. I'm like, oh, there is something different about this kid, about this teenager, about this adult. I don't know what it is. They're just comfortable in their skin. What is it? They know themselves. We followed a philosophy. There's 3 different types of schooling, of home education. I don't call it homeschooling, because what happens in home education isn't anything like what happens in school. I want to separate it. So home education, there's school-based learning, which is done. I think it's done by a lot of religious home educators, because they want their children to be absorbed, to know about that family's faith, whether it's Christian or Jewish or Hindu or Muslim or whatever, right? They want them instructed in that. And they do a lot of formal instruction, but it's not exclusively them, right? But you have tests and timetables and stuff like that. Then the other is project-based learning. You know, Dizzy, you're my 10-year-old kid. This month, what do you want to do a project on? You say, Daddy, let's do a project on trains. Okay, well, let's go to the library and find out about trains. And we do how were trains made and who designed them? And we get into history and we learn about, was it Robert Louis Stevenson or something? Oh, he was an author. But anyway, right? We learn about the history of them and how do you build a train? And then we get into geography and climate and where do you get the resources from? Well, they had to steal them from these countries and they had to send people down the mines to get them, right? So you touch upon all sorts of subjects. The child chose the subject. You might be like, I want to learn about dinosaurs. Okay, well, let's go learn about dinosaurs. So that's project-based learning. The other is what we did with our children, which is unschooling.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
Oh, it's brilliant. Brilliant. So apart from a few activities during the day, organized structures, you know, like a bedtime, and actually that's pretty much it, a bedtime, the trips out or whatever, breakfast, lunch and dinner or whatever, the kids do whatever they want. They just play. They just play and play and play and play and play and play. And sometimes that looks like the kids doing nothing. You know, I've watched my, I think it's my daughter. She just spent a couple of hours one summer in the garden, just looking at daisies, sitting on the grass, just looking at daisies. I had no idea what was going on for her, none. But it was just beautiful to see her just sitting there, looking at daisies, picking at them. I don't know what she was doing or what was going on for her, but she was free to discover herself in the silence that self-chosen created solitude allows for.
Music to my ears, brother.
My son, I wasn't there. My wife told me about this. He must have been 5, 6, 7 years old. He was just sitting thinking about something. And my wife says to him, what are you doing? He goes, Mommy, I'm thinking a big think. You knock yourself out. But in that silence, in that space, children discover themselves. They traverse the contours of their being. Plus, they get to be responsible for how they organize their day. So on occasion, didn't happen very often after a while, one of them or both of them would come up to me and say, Abu, I'm bored. Right? Yeah. So what do you want me to do about it? You're bored. Go occupy yourself. Go create something. Not my problem. Not my job to entertain you. It's your day, your life, your moment. I mean, I didn't say that bit, but that was my whole approach. Okay, you're bored. We'll go and create something. Not my problem. Okay, so now they got to create something. Boredom is the foundation for creativity as long as there's the space
to create. Yeah.
Create. The children get to be responsible for their day. What am I going to do today? Oh, I know, I'll do some drawing. I mean, one of the things that we did limit, I don't think we limited it enough, is screen time. So they had virtually no TV when they were very little, right? And no computers and screens, because I want them to be actively creating something versus passive recipients of something, and for whole other reasons, right? I want them living in and engaged in a multi-dimensional world and with other people and not with pixels on a screen. We didn't do that, right? So now, well, I'm going to do some drawing. Or one says to the other, well, let's do some, let's play this game. Let's do Lego. Let's do this. Let's do that. So they got to be responsible for how they organize their day, which sets them up, that habit for life. You organize it. You get to say how it goes.
Wow, I'm loving it. So listen,
find some holes in what I'm saying.
There's no holes. I'm loving it. It feels like it sounds like music to me. Honestly,
Yes.
I feel so blessed to be present and getting the distinctions in what you're saying in the conversations, because and the fact that we're recording it, the fact that it's allowed to go out, the fact that I'm publicly acknowledging my wife and publicly getting a distinction of my own what I've got today from my own experience with my son is priceless. So
Yes.
what I'd like to do
Well, I
is
want to, if I can, because I want to say something about how you are and how your wife is versus how school is, right?
okay.
If you, unless you want to ask me something, I do want to, because that's
No,
really
no, go,
important.
go.
Okay. So, what nobody is going to love my children the way me and my wife do. Nobody. Possibly their grandparents, because apparently grandparents love kids even more than parents, right? But apart from them, nobody. Right? Now, I'm a social worker. I care for the children that I work with, but only as long as you pay me. So the context for my relationship with those children is it's an economic one. I'm a state functionary. When it's time to clock off, sure, I'll do a few extra hours, but it's time to clock off. I'm done. Right? That's the same deal with the teacher. No, I'm done. I'm on holiday now. I'm a paid functionary. I will look after and care for these children as long as I'm assigned to, as long as I'm in this school, as long as these kids are in my class. So it's completely constrained by time and money. That's the background context.
Okay.
What's the background context that you and your wife have for caring for your son?
You mean present or previous? Because my circumstances have changed now.
No. Right now, always. What's the background context that you have for your son and your wife has for your son? You both share it.
We want the best for him all the time.
Brings from something else. Why?
Because he's ours. We love him.
That's it. It's love. It's love. You'll never, you and I, we will never ever stop loving our children. It's not limited by time and money. I love my children for free.
Yeah.
Sometimes when they're real brats, I mean, I can't do anything about it. I'm a prisoner of my love for them, right? The context is love. That's a completely different experience for you and for them than it is between a teacher and a child or a social worker and a child, right?
Massive.
And now, there is where love springs from is attachment. Now, there's a whole attachment system.
Okay.
Get into the realm. So one of the things I looked at is evolutionary biology. What part has evolutionary biology got to play with home education? So I looked at anthropology, neurology, psychology, industrialization, imperialism, capitalism, pedagogy, teaching philosophies, the history of schools, anthropology, history of biology, and there may be evolutionary biology, and there may have been other ologies that I don't bring to mind that I might have considered, right? Versus this sort of tunnel-based thinking. And I think what kind of rescued me is when I was at school, I didn't obey the rules either. I did really well, but I was naughty and mischievous.
Yeah. I mean, look, whenever I get told there's rules, I want to break them straight away.
Well, that's just a push button reaction. It may not always be the smartest thing, right? But we are backbone mammals, animals, right?
Yeah.
Fish, reptiles, birds, mammals, amphibians all have backbones. There's only 2 of those groups that care for their infants. Birds and mammals. A frog will lay the eggs, job done. A newt will lay the eggs, job done. Most fish, a few fish look after them for a little while, lay the eggs, job done. Same with reptiles. One or two reptiles here and there may look after them, but job done, that's it. We, mammals and birds, look after their young, and we look after their young until they're mature enough to go off on their own. That process, that system is the attachment system. Now, it's a system as discrete and as the reproductive system, as the digestive system, as the neurological system, as our sensory systems. It is a system, but it's not confined to one body. My reproductive system is over here with me. It's not over there with you, Dizzy, right? My digestive system is over here in my stomach, not your stomach, right? And vice versa. However, the attachment system exists in relationship.
Okay.
In the bond between, now I'm going to use mother, right? Because usually, naturally, it's the mother, but it doesn't mean, you know, there aren't other parties involved, like the father and aunts and uncles and grandparents, right? But between the mother is the primary carer because she's the one that springs the child, right? Between the mother and the child.
Yes.
The carer, right? The stronger the attachment, and I say what that looks like, the better the brain. Attachment grows the brain.
Okay.
And attachment is essential for survival. So, you know, babies are cute. You ever notice that 6-month-old babies? They're so cute.
Yeah.
The ones I'm not related to. I mean, mine were really cute, but I see these other babies. I go and visit on,
They are.
As a social worker, now there's this delightful little baby. This is a visit, very recent visit, right? And she's just sitting there in her pram, smiling at me, and I'm just smiling back at her, and my heart just wants to burst. And they're just so cute and endearing, and it's by evil design. And I say evil, tongue in cheek, right? But it's deliberately designed to capture my heart, so I look after her because she can't do it herself. So the only access that an infant has, a mammalian infant has, is to survive. The only access they have to resources is in the relationship with their primary carer.
Right.
So we got to cuddle them and love them. And oh my God, right? They're just so good. Don't babies smell good? Don't they smell so good? And you just want to, I'm getting broody now, right? But now, here's one of the things they found out with regards to attachment. Take a 6-month-old infant. Let's say your son is 6 months old, and I take your son with parental consent, and I put him on my lap, and he's awake and alert, and he's not distressed, and I'm jigging him up and down, and I'm talking to him, right? And, you know, just smiling at him, and he's laughing, and it's just lovely, right? His neurons are firing like crazy. Then we put him in your lap, and you do the same as I do. There's more neural activity because of the attachment bond between you and him. Then we put him in your wife's lap, in his mother's lap. Oh my God. Nuclear bombs going off all the time. Even though she's doing exactly the same thing as you and I did from the outside. That's all we see. But because of the attachment bond, attachment grows the brain.
Wow.
Now, you look at all the intelligent mammals and even some of the birds, like the corvids, crows, magpies, and all of that, right? They have very long attachment phases.
Okay.
So I think with chimpanzees, it's 2 years. I think with elephants, it's 5 years. With corvids, I think it might be a couple of years. Crows, couple of years. Very intelligent animals, crows, right? They look after their young, and the older siblings look after the younger siblings from the previous year's fledgling lot will look after this year's fledgling lot.
Yeah.
So with dolphins, I think it's about 2 years. With human beings, it's 7 years. The attachment phase is 7 years. We are infants for 7 years, which is why most countries in the world send their children to school around the age 6 or 7, except for Britain and the former colonies of Britain. They send them to school at 5 because of the 1870 Elementary Education Act, where the government of the day decided we send children to school at 5, and then they can, when they're 10 years old, they can finish. They'll have 5 years, and that'll be enough for them to know what they need to know and then go work down the coal mines. So my cousins in Pakistan started school at 5 because of the needs of the English coal mining industry in Victorian Britain, not because it's the best thing for children. But that model was exported because of the needs of the coal mining industry in the UK, right? So 7 years. And what happens when the child is 7? What do the Jesuits say? Give me a boy till he's 7, I'll give you the man. In Islam, no academic instruction before the child is 7. Steiner philosophy, no academic instruction before the child is 7. Around about the age of 7, we lose the ability to suckle. You and I can no longer suckle. We can suck, but we can't suckle. It's a movement that we can no longer make. Our immune system matures and we can now generate our own antibodies. We're not dependent upon mother's milk for the antibodies. Our adult teeth have pretty much all come in. And we're ready to leave that base, that secure foundation of attachment, and to start exploring.
Wow.
School is designed to interrupt that process, to wrench infants away from their parents. Listen to us. We are your lords and masters. Don't listen to your parents. Don't follow your gods. Follow our gods. Now, if you take, there's more. There's more. If you take an infant chimpanzee from one troop and you place that infant chimpanzee with another troop, what's that troop of chimpanzees going to do?
Reject it?
They're going to kill it. That's what they do. Chimpanzees are brutal. Bonobos are a bit different. They're a friendly lot. They're a hippie sort of ape, right? They'll kill it. Why should they care? It's not their genetic stock. We are the only mammals that give away our infants to non-familial genetic strangers. No other mammal does that. No, a pride of lions don't give away their cubs to some other pride. A herd of elephants don't give away their baby elephants to some other herd. We are the only mammals that do that. And we've only been doing it since the early 19th century. Got nothing to do with our design and everything to do with the needs of capital. I'm not giving away my kid to strangers. Why would I do that? They're mine. Now, I'll give them away to my brother. I'll give them away to my wife's sister. I'll give them away to family. I'll give them away to really close friends, provided and when my child is ready to go to them. Because there's something that we do to our kids when we send them to nursery, which I think is brutal. And it breaks attachment. You hear, kids at school, on the first day of school, they cry and cry and cry because they want their mummy. Yeah, too bloody right, they want their mummy. That's like thousands of years of evolutionary history you're going against, right? Or nursery or kindergarten, they're crying and crying and crying, and sometimes the mum or the dad has to stay there until the child settles, right? But actually something happens. Attachment breaks. So imagine you are a baby leopard, entirely dependent on your mother to care for you, to provide for you, and you're there in the African savannah, and somehow you get separated. What are you going to do?
You're going to panic.
You're going to panic. Okay. And what action are you going to take?
Cry.
Yeah. Well, you go into a state called protest. You try and call your mum. You cry, you protest, you make noises to call your mum. You call her, call her, call her, call her, call her, call her. And it's getting dark and she's not coming. Now what are you going to do?
You're going to be scared.
Yeah, but what are you going to do?
Go look for her.
No. You don't know how to. You're an infant. You've already done that. It's getting dark. What are you going to do?
Nothing.
You're going to shut up. Because protest didn't work. Mummy didn't come. You go into the what's known as the state of despair.
Okay.
Mummy ain't coming. It's over. Your heart is broken. And you better shut up or the baboons are going to find you. Now, we do the equivalent. Nursery staff aren't baboons. But the infant doesn't know any better. The infant has been placed in this alien environment with these alien people. And it's the alien people, because we got it back to front. When my kids were infants, I could take them anywhere I wanted. And I did. I was traveling around visiting family and friends and stuff. As long as they were with me, it didn't matter what environment they were in. They didn't care that I was in this friend's house or over here with their aunt, or we were camping in a tent here, or we're sleeping on a friend's floor here, we're visiting in the West Country, or up at my brother's in London or Bradford or whatever. They didn't care. They were with me. Attachment is all about is relationship. Relationship. And then that's the foundation for relationships later on in life. So home-educated kids have never had their attachment broken in that way.
Wow.
A child, when they're later on, 12, 13, 11, they might decide, I want to go to school, but that's okay. They're out of the attachment phase and it's their choice. It's intrinsic, right? Now, attachment is also the foundation of socializing, of social relationships. Because how are they going to socialize? People don't know the roots of socialization. If you immerse a child in a group of another similarly ignorant children, that's not socializing. Besides, you're not here to socialize. You're here to study. Sit down and do that test. That's school. Stop bullying each other. And then the other, bullying, by the way, just in terms of the impact on relationships, you got the observer, the victim, and the bully. All three are harmed by the process of bullying. All three are harmed. The observer is afraid that it's going to come his or her way. The victim is being subjected to it. Excuse my finger there, right? The victim is being objected to it, right? This is the victim, okay? This is the observer now, okay? The observer is being harmed because they're fearful that it's going to come their way, right? The victim is being subjected to it. Oh my God, here we go again. Fear. The bully is fearful because they're responding out of fear. And they learn that this is a way to get on in life. That's messed up. All three of them messed up. The background of school, the background context of school is fear. Boredom. Fear and boredom. Starting off, sir, it's Mr. Taylor. It started off the day you walked into our class, and in order to exert control, humiliated quietest, best behaved girl in class. And then we were all afraid of you. And now we're all afraid of each other and afraid of what each of us is doing to the other, or afraid of what we're seeing. So the background context is fear. It ain't love. Now, the foundation for relationships, for healthy relationships, is attachment, because it grows love.
Mm.
You know, don't you just
Wow.
love it? You know, like, how old is your son, by the way?
He's 5.
He's 5, right? He's 5. Oh, they're just so lovely when they're 5.
Oh,
They're just so
he is the
lovely.
best.
Hold them in my heart bursts. And then we did some other things. We did baby carrying. I didn't want to put them in a pram. They want to be with me. I want to be with them. We both slept. My wife breastfed until they're about 2.5 years old each, right? Not exclusively for the first 6 months, but it was always there because it's much, much better for their brain, much better for their immune system, much, much better for attachment. Oh, just on that, right? Human beings, we have the least nutritious milk of all the mammals.
Really?
Yeah, it's the weakest, most insipid milk you can get of any of the mammals, right? A mummy rabbit can feed her babies once every 24 hours. That means she can leave them in the burrow, go foraging, nibbling on grass and carrots or whatever, fill herself, come back, feed the babies, go to sleep. Or go to sleep, then feed the babies in the morning, right? She's free to do whatever she wants. Human infants need regular feeding about every 20 minutes or so. And that's what traditional hunter-gatherers did. Every 20 minutes, that infant needs feeding. Now, what does that look like in practice?
Very busy.
Very busy, but it means the baby's got to be close to you.
Mm.
Close to mum or aunt or grandma. We're the only mammals, possibly elephants, I'm not sure about this, right? But certainly no other primate, where women hang around long after they're no longer fertile. Chimpanzee mums, they stop being fertile, that's it, they're off. Bonobo mums, gorilla mums, stop being fertile, can't have babies anymore, dead. Nature kills them. Not so with human beings. Why is that?
Because they're designed to help.
That's right. So grandmother can hang around and support mum and dad, mum really, right? Looking after the baby. Plus, once a woman has breastfed, she has the ability to breastfeed for the rest of her life. All it takes is the physical stimulation of a suckling infant. Job done, the milk starts flowing. So then the baby, so mum gets a break because aunt can feed the baby, grandmother can feed the baby because they've fed before, their own children, and then the baby's also getting their immune systems, getting the benefit of their antibodies, and developing attachment with these people, the baby's envelope, surrounded by people that love and care for that child, versus being in a network, in a crowd of strangers that are there by compulsion, by physical compulsion, because their parents sent them there, or by economic compulsion, because it's a way to earn a living, versus being there out of love and because you're there and you're loved.
Wow, everyone, listen, this interview, so normally the process is we'll have 2 breaks, yeah? We haven't had a single break. And
listen, I'm so passionate about this, right?
I'm loving it. So look, yesterday was, I have really amazing days, right? And every day seems to get better than the last day. And I had one of the most amazing days ever on Friday. That was yesterday, right? I was in a Jewish cafe and I was so inspired. I burst into tears, right? It was almost embarrassing, but I'm not embarrassed. But a normal person would have been embarrassed to just be sobbing in a Jewish cafe where everyone's Orthodox. I'm the only non-Jew inside this place, right?
Right.
But the owner is my friend, so I've gone to see him. And in that time, I got a phone call from a gentleman that unlocked my possibility when I was 17. He was the guy who taught me how to be a hairdresser. Because I went into a salon and I pretended I could cut hair when I couldn't. I was a stylist for 1 year, but I couldn't cut hair. I could do a number 3 blend, which my brother and all my other cousins had. So I practiced on them. And then I got sacked and I got sent to London. So when I went into the shop, I pretended I could do a haircut. I said, look, I've got him a number 3 blend, and I did it. Anyway, so I got the job, and then the next day I started, I had to do a men's haircut, and it wasn't what I used to do. I couldn't do it. So I'm standing around this guy's hair, and the woman, Lynn, goes, come here. She goes, you can't cut hair, can you? I said, no, I can't. She went, right, get in the back now, because you just lied to us to say you can cut hair. You've given us a demonstration, but you lied. Get in the back. So I got in the back, and they said, right, look, it takes some cojones to say you can cut hair when you can't. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to offer you an apprenticeship. And the guy said, look, you can teach anybody how to cut hair. Yeah. You can't teach someone how to have cojones. Like, to come in and do that. Anyway, so this guy became my coach. He taught me how to cut hair. But combined with the idea that I'm not the president's son anymore. No one knows my dad, so I can do whatever I want. I can do anything. The way this guy thought, and I mean, I'm not going to share the teaching techniques because it was very, very unconventional. So unconventional that he's the only person in my life, because I've achieved so many things. He's the only person up until yesterday that I haven't managed to thank for contributing to my life. And I managed to get in touch with him on Facebook, and he called me whilst I was in this Jewish cafe. And the conversation, the last thing he said to me was, Dizzy, when I was 21, he goes, remember one thing, you are a shit hot hairdresser, yeah? No matter where you go in the world, that's who you are, yeah? And I said to him, that's the last thing you said to me, Mario. And since 21, I've not spoken to you. I want to thank you for, now I can see what you did for me. When I look back after studying human behavior, you weren't conscious of what you were doing. I wasn't conscious of what you were doing. But when I look at it, and I acknowledged it as such an amazing moment in my life. Now, the reason I'm saying this is I'm having the same thoughts right now because I've learned so much about me and my son and my wife, and I've got to say thank you so much, Imran, for this information. But I've got to be on another webinar in 13 minutes, right? But there's still more to talk about because, look, if you're watching this and you're like me, you want to know, what do I do next, right? So we're going to call this part 1, okay? Because there's too much we haven't even had an advert break, yeah? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, look, let's end it at this point, and then I'm going to speak to you, and we're going to have to do part 2 because if you've watched this and you're inspired and you want to do something and you don't want to send your kids to school, right? We need to have an action plan, as in, okay, what can someone do? What are the steps to make it happen? So that's what I want to do next.
Sure.
So are we good to do that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I just want to thank you so much, right? Thank you for the space that you've given me because I'm so passionate about this and I don't get a chance to talk about it as much as I used to, right? But also, can you see how I wasn't fazed by what people said to me? They can say whatever they like. They don't know about it. They just don't know what they're talking about, right?
Look, I've learned so much today.
Yeah, but Dizzy, if people who are watching this, if they have any questions, you know, how to do this or what about this or what about that, and they put them in below the description, then we can address them next time round or something, if that's appropriate.
Yeah, no, we'll find a way. We'll find a way to do it because, look, this is too hot to not share, okay? It's too hot. I mean, the thing is, the fact we're not live is it's a shame, but it's not a shame because I'm loaded up now. I'm telling you that. When Kalpesh and Harinder said to me, listen, if you want to do home education, you need to speak to Imran. So, I mean, I've had your details for a long time. And there are so many things that you've said today that have been like explosions of the thing that you said. You know, what was that word where the neuro something that did
neurodivergence or whatever, or the
So right now, my head's exploding inside. My neurodivergence is going mental because I'm so excited. Because if you imagine all the things that I thought are actually the opposite, and everything's been perfect. There's me thinking that I'm the stuff that my wife is doing is winding me up. And it was only winding me up because I was following this other thought pattern, which I didn't follow. And I wanted to endorse that on my son, which is just the wrong thing. And the thing is that there's so many things that you've said. My wife does all of those things to the extreme that you're saying. And I'm trying to say, yeah, but I've let her do it. And I've made it clear that I'm not happy with it. But as of today, I can't ever do that again. I can only love and appreciate her for everything she's done, the way she's done it. And I can only apologize for the resistance. But look, I had to have that resistance in order for me to learn the distinction today and make today one of the greatest days I've ever lived. So Imran, thank you so much for bringing the distinction to my life, because my life will never, ever, ever, ever be the same ever again.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on. We haven't even talked about play and how important.
No, this is what I'm saying. So look,
right, there's loads. Okay, we could do that next time round.
Yeah, so I will call you after, and then we will figure out exactly what we're going to create in the future, because this is too gangster, my friends. Too gangster. I mean, Kalpesh was right, man. He was so right. So listen, I've got 9 minutes before I get on this call.
Thank you, Dizzy.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, this is to be continued, ladies and gentlemen. To be continued.